Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Starfall, looking at the star map in front of him. The red warning symbols blinked across the screen like angry eyes. Each symbol marked a place where ships had vanished. Each symbol told him to stay away. "Captain, we are getting close to the Nexus system," said Sam Turner from the communication station. Her voice was quiet, almost scared. "The Galactic Council warnings are getting stronger." Jake nodded but did not look away from the map. He had been a space explorer for 15 years. He had seen many strange things among the stars. But this place was different. This place had stories that made even the bravest pilots turn their ships around. Dr. Lisa Park walked onto the bridge carrying a data pad. She was the ship's scientist, always curious about new discoveries. "Jake, I have been reading the old records again. Every alien race in the galaxy has warnings about this system. The Zentari call it the place of screaming silence. The Vorthan name means Tomb of the Star Killer." "What do humans call it?" asked Carlos Martinez from his engineering station. He was checking the ship's systems for the third time that hour. "We call it the Nexus system," Jake said. "But the aliens who have been here longer than us call it something else. They call it the place where something terrible sleeps." Sam looked up from her station. "Captain, I am picking up a transmission. It is very old, maybe 1,000 years. The message is repeating in 12 different languages." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The screen filled with symbols and words from many different worlds. Sam worked to translate them. The message says the same thing in every language. It says the sleeping terror lies beyond. Do not wake what slumbers in chains. Turn back now or join the Silent Fleet. Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. Silent Fleet? Lisa checked her data pad. According to the records, over 3,000 ships have entered this system in the last 1,000 years. None have ever returned. Their wreckage forms a ring around the central planet. Carlo shook his head. "Maybe we should listen to the warnings." 3,000 ships, Captain. That is a lot of dead people." But Jake was looking at something else on his screen. Strange energy readings were coming from the planet at the center of the system. The energy was like nothing he had ever seen before. It called to him somehow, making him want to know more. "Captain," Sam said, her voice shaking, "Earth Command is sending us new orders. They want us to turn around and go home. They say the mission is too dangerous." Jake stared at the energy readings. Every logical part of his mind told him to obey the orders. Turn the ship around, go back to safe space. Report that the Nexus system was still forbidden, but something deep inside him refused to give up. Humans had always been curious. They had always looked at the impossible and decided to try anyway. That was how they had reached the stars. That was how they had joined the galactic community. "Plot a course for the central planet," Jake said quietly. "Captain?" Carlos stood up from his station. "Sir, with respect, that might be suicide." "Maybe," Jake said. "But we are explorers. We go where others fear to go. We find answers to questions that have no answers." Lisa moved closer to him. "Jake, the energy readings are getting stronger. Whatever's down there, it is big. Really big, and it has been there for a very long time." "Then we need to know what it is," Jake said. "Sam, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we are investigating the source of the energy readings. Tell them if we do not report back in 1 week, they should mark this system as forbidden forever." Sam's hands moved over her controls. "Message sent, Captain." As the starfall moved deeper into the Nexus system, strange things began to happen. The lights on the bridge flickered. The gravity felt wrong, sometimes heavy, sometimes light. Carlos reported that their instruments were acting crazy. "Captain," Lisa said, looking at her scanner, "I am detecting debris ahead. Lots of debris." The main screen showed what was left of the Silent Fleet. Thousands of broken ships floated in the darkness. Some were human vessels. Others came from alien worlds Jake had never seen. "All of them were dead and cold, my God," Sam whispered. "There are so many of them." Jake felt the weight of all those lost lives. But he also felt something else. The strange energy from the planet was getting stronger. It was almost like it was calling to him, asking him to come closer. "Take us through the debris field," he ordered. "But be careful. I want to know what happened to these ships." As they moved through the graveyard of spacecraft, Lisa made a discovery. "Captain, these ships were not destroyed by weapons. They just stopped working. Their power systems failed all at once. What could do that?" Carlos asked. "I do not know," Lisa said. "But whatever it was, it affected every type of technology from dozens of different worlds." The planet grew larger on their screen. It was dark and scarred, like something had burned it long ago. but the energy readings were coming from somewhere on its surface. "Take us down," Jake said. "I want to land near the energy source." "Captain," Sam said, "are you sure about this?" Jake looked at his crew. They were scared, but they trusted him. They had followed him across the galaxy and into danger before. "No," he said honestly. "I am not sure, but sometimes you have to take risks to find the truth." As the starfall entered the planet's atmosphere, Jake wondered if he was making the biggest mistake of his life. But somewhere below them something was waiting, something that had been alone for 1,000 years, and maybe, just maybe, it was time for someone to find it. The starfall touched down on the planet's surface with a soft thud. Jake looked out the window at the broken world around them. Once this place might have been beautiful. Now it looked like a battlefield where giants had fought and lost. "Atmosphere is breathable," Carlos reported, "but the air feels heavy, like there is electricity in it." Lisa was already putting on her environmental suit. "I am reading massive structures ahead. They look like ruins of a city. A very big city." Jake put on his own suit and checked his equipment. "Sam, you stay with the ship. Keep the engines ready. If something goes wrong, get us out of here fast." "Yes, Captain," Sam said, but Jake could hear the worry in her voice. Jake, Lisa, and Carlos stepped out of the ship onto the dead ground. The soil was black and hard, like it had been burned long ago. In the distance, they could see the remains of tall buildings and strange towers. "The energy readings are coming from the center of the city," Lisa said, looking at her scanner. "About 2 kilometers that way." They walked through the ruins slowly. The buildings were made of materials Jake had never seen before. Some looked like crystal. Others seemed to be grown rather than built. All of them were broken and empty. "This place gives me the creeps," Carlos said. "It feels like someone is watching us." Jake felt it too. The air around them seemed to move and whisper even though there was no wind. Sometimes he thought he could hear voices, but when he stopped to listen, there was only silence. They came to what had once been a great plaza. Broken statues lay scattered across the ground. Lisa knelt down next to one of them. "This statue shows a creature I have never seen before. It has wings like a bird, but a body like a giant lizard." "Dragon," Jake said quietly. "What?" Lisa looked up at him. "On Earth, we have stories about creatures like this. We call them dragons. But they are just myths." Carlos pointed ahead. "Look at that." At the center of the plaza was a crater. It was so wide that Jake could not see the other side. The energy readings were coming from somewhere deep inside it. They walked to the edge and looked down. The crater was not empty. Something enormous lay at the bottom. Something so big that Jake's mind had trouble understanding what he was seeing. "Is that alive?" Lisa whispered. The creature at the bottom of the crater was the size of a mountain. It had 4 legs, 2 massive wings, and a long neck that ended in a head full of sharp teeth. Its skin was dark red like old blood, and wrapped around its body were chains. The chains were not made of metal. They were made of some kind of crystal that glowed with cold blue light. The chains wrapped around the creature's legs, wings, and neck. They held it pressed against the ground like a prisoner. "It is breathing," Carlos said, pointing at the creature's chest. Very slowly, very faintly, the huge chest was moving up and down. Lisa was taking readings with her scanner. "Captain, this creature is alive, but it is in some kind of sleep. The chains are not just holding it down. They are doing something to its mind." Jake felt drawn to climb down into the crater. Something about the sleeping creature called to him. "We need to get closer. Are you crazy?" Carlos grabbed his arm. "That thing could eat our ship for breakfast." "It is chained up," Jake said, "and it is sleeping. We need to understand what this place is." They found a path that led down into the crater. As they got closer to the creature, Jake could see that the chains were covered in symbols and writing. The same writing was carved into the rocks around the crater. "Sam," Jake said into his radio, "are you getting this?" "Yes, Captain." Sam's voice came through the static. "I am recording everything. And Captain, I am picking up something else. The creature is making sounds. Very quiet sounds. Like it is dreaming." Lisa was studying the chains closely. "These symbols are old, very old, but I think I can translate some of them." She worked for an hour, taking pictures and making notes. Finally, she stood up with a strange look on her face. "What does it say?" Jake asked. "It tells a story," Lisa said slowly. "A story about a creature called Vathon, the Stardevourer. It says he once flew between the stars eating planets and suns." Carlos stepped back from the creature. So the warnings were right. "This thing is a monster." "Wait," Lisa said. "There is more. It says that Vathon was not always evil. Once he was a guardian. He protected young worlds and helped new life grow. But something happened to him. Something that drove him mad. Jake looked at the massive creature's face. Even in sleep, it looked sad. What happened? His people died, Lisa said. All of them. A great sickness killed every other creature like him. He was left alone in the universe. The loneliness and sadness drove him crazy. That is when he became a destroyer. So the other alien races caught him and chained him up here, Carlos said. Lisa nodded. 1,000 years ago, they worked together to trap him. They built these chains to hold him forever. But the chains do more than just hold him. They keep him in constant pain. They make sure he can never find peace, even in sleep. Jake felt sick. They torture him. Yes, Lisa said. The chains feed off his own life energy. They use his strength to keep him trapped, and they fill his mind with nightmares. They make sure he stays angry and crazy, so that even if he breaks free, he will only want to destroy. Carlos shook his head. Maybe that is the only way. Maybe some creatures are too dangerous to let free. But Jake was looking at the creature's face again. In his mind, he tried to imagine what it would be like to be the last of your kind, to lose everyone you loved, to be trapped and tortured for 1,000 years. Captain, Sam's voice came through the radio. I have been listening to the sounds the creature makes. I think I can clean them up and make them clearer. Do it, Jake said. A few minutes later, Sam's voice came back. Captain, you need to hear this. Through their radios came a sound like whale song, but deeper and sadder. It was the sound of the sleeping creature. And even though Jake could not understand the words, he could feel the emotion behind them. It was the sound of someone crying. Lisa was studying her scanner again. Captain, I have bad news. The chains are failing. The crystal is starting to crack. In maybe 20 or 30 years, they will break. What happens then? Carlos asked. Then Vathon wakes up, Lisa said. And after 1,000 years of torture and nightmares, he will be completely insane. He really will become the monster they were afraid of. Jake stared at the enormous creature. Somewhere under all that pain and madness was a being that had once protected life instead of destroying it. But how could anyone reach something that had been hurt so badly for so long? We need to do something, Jake said. Like what? Carlos asked. We are just 4 humans with 1 small ship. Jake did not have an answer. But as he looked at the chained creature, he knew they could not just walk away. Someone had to try to help. Someone had to care enough to take the risk, even if that someone was just a human. Back on the Starfall, the crew sat around the main table in silence. Lisa had spread out all her data about the creature and the chains. The information painted a picture that none of them wanted to face. So let me understand this, Sam said slowly. In about 20 years, those chains will break. When they do, Vathon will wake up completely insane from 1,000 years of torture, and then he will destroy everything he can reach. That is correct, Lisa said. The quantum energy that powers the chains is getting weaker. The crystal is developing cracks. It is only a matter of time. Carlos leaned back in his chair. So what are our choices? We can fix the chains and keep torturing him forever, or we can let him go free and watch him destroy half the galaxy. There might be a third choice, Lisa said quietly. Jake looked up. What do you mean? I have been studying the way the chains work. They do not just cause physical pain. They attack the mind directly. They force the victim to relive their worst memories over and over again. But what if we could reverse that process? Explain, Jake said. Lisa pulled up a diagram on her datapad. The chains work by connecting to the creature's nervous system. They read his thoughts and feelings, then twist them into nightmares. But the connection works both ways. If someone else could link their mind to his through the chains, they might be able to share better memories. They might be able to heal some of the damage. Sam shook her head. That sounds incredibly dangerous. What if the person trying to help gets pulled into the nightmare instead? That is the risk, Lisa admitted. Anyone who tries this would be connecting their mind directly to a being that has been driven insane by 1,000 years of torture. They might get lost in his madness. Carlos stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the dead city stretched to the horizon. Even if it worked, even if someone could heal his mind, he would still be incredibly powerful. How do we know he would not just decide to destroy everything anyway? We do not know, Jake said. But we know what happens if we do nothing. In 20 years, he breaks free and becomes the monster they were afraid of. At least this way, we would be giving him a choice. A choice? Sam asked. The choice to be what he was before the pain drove him crazy, Jake said. The choice to be a protector instead of a destroyer. Lisa looked at her data again. There is something else. The alien races that built this prison, they never tried to communicate with Vathon. They were so afraid of him that they just wanted him gone. But the records show that his species was very intelligent. They had art, music, philosophy. They were not monsters, until the loneliness made them into monsters, Carlos said. But that was not their true nature, Lisa insisted. If we could reach the part of him that remembers what he used to be, maybe we could bring that back. Jake stood up and walked to the center of the room. If we try this, who would make the connection? Who would risk their mind to reach his? The room was quiet for a long moment. Then Jake realized they were all looking at him. Captain, Sam said slowly, you are not seriously thinking about doing this yourself. Why not? Jake asked. I am the captain. It is my job to take the biggest risks. It is suicide, Carlos said flatly. Jake, this creature has been trapped in hell for 1,000 years. If you link your mind to his madness could destroy your sanity in seconds. Maybe, Jake said, but maybe humans are different. We have survived things that would break other species. We adapt, we endure. We find hope in hopeless places. Lisa was looking at him with worry in her eyes. Jake, even if you survive the connection, you would have to convince a being that has forgotten how to trust. You would have to make him believe that not all creatures are cruel. Then I will show him, Jake said. I will show him what humans are like. I will show him that some people care about others, even strangers. Even creatures that look like monsters. Sam stood up. Captain, I cannot let you do this. It is too dangerous. You cannot stop me, Jake said gently. This is my choice to make. Carlos turned around from the window. What if you are wrong? What if he is too far gone? What if touching those chains just gets you killed? Jake thought about that. Then at least we will have tried. At least someone will have cared enough to take the risk. Why? Sam asked. Why does this matter so much to you? Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because he is alone. Because he has been suffering for 1,000 years and no one has ever tried to help him. Because every other species in the galaxy just wrote him off as a monster and forgot about him. But what if he really is a monster now? Carlos asked. Then I guess we will find out, Jake said. But I would rather die trying to save someone than live knowing I let them suffer when I could have helped. Lisa was studying the chain diagrams again. If you are really going to do this, we need to prepare. The connection has to be made at exactly the right spot on the chains. And we will need to monitor your vital signs constantly. If your brain activity becomes too chaotic, we pull you out immediately. How long would I need to maintain the connection? Jake asked. I do not know, Lisa said honestly. It might take hours. It might take days. Long enough to share enough good memories to balance out some of the bad ones. Sam shook her head. This is crazy. We are talking about trying to heal 1,000 years of trauma with good thoughts and happy memories. It is not just the memories, Lisa said. It is the connection itself. He has been alone for so long that just having someone willingly share his thoughts might help. Just knowing that someone cares enough to try. Jake made his decision. We are going to do this. Lisa, figure out exactly where and how I need to touch the chains. Carlos, I want you to monitor all the equipment. If something goes wrong with the ship or our life support, we need to know immediately. Sam, you keep watch for any other ships or signals. If someone else shows up while we are doing this, it could complicate everything. Captain, Sam said quietly. What do we tell Earth Command if this goes wrong? Jake thought about that. Tell them that we found something worth saving. Tell them that sometimes the biggest risks lead to the most important discoveries. As his crew prepared for what might be the most dangerous thing any human had ever attempted, Jake looked out at the crater where Vathon lay sleeping. Somewhere under all that pain and madness was a being that had once protected life. Tomorrow, Jake would find out if there was enough of that protector left to save, or if 1,000 years of torture had destroyed him completely. Either way, Jake was going to try. Because that was what humans did. They tried when everyone else gave up. They cared when caring seemed pointless. They reached out to those who had been forgotten by everyone else, even if it killed them. Jake stood at the edge of the crater as the sun set over the dead world. The chains around Vathon glowed brighter in the darkness, pulsing with cold blue light like a heartbeat made of pain. All systems are ready, Captain, Carlos said through the radio. Your vital signs are strong. Life support is at 100%. Lisa was beside Jake, checking her equipment one more time. Remember, you need to touch the chain right here where the neural connections are strongest. The moment you make contact, you will be pulled into his mind. Try to stay focused on who you are and where you come from. What if I get lost in there? Jake asked. Then we pull you out, Sam said from the ship. We are monitoring your brain activity. If it gets too chaotic, we break the connection. Jake nodded and started walking down into the crater. Each step brought him closer to the sleeping giant. Up close, Vathon was even more massive than he had seen from above. One of his claws was longer than Jake's entire body. He is beautiful, Jake said softly. What? Lisa's voice came through his radio. I said he is beautiful. Look at him. Even chained up, even sleeping, you can see he was meant to fly among the stars. Jake reached the closest chain. It was warm to the touch and hummed with energy. The symbols carved into its surface seemed to move in the blue light. Here goes nothing, Jake said. He reached out and pressed his palm against the crystal surface. The world exploded into light and pain and screaming. Jake found himself falling through darkness, surrounded by flashes of memory that were not his own. He saw Vathon as he had been long ago, soaring through space with others of his kind. They were magnificent creatures who danced between the stars, their scales shining like jewels in the starlight. But then the visions changed. Jake saw the great sickness that swept through Vathon's people. One by one, the other dragons fell from the sky, their bodies consumed by a plague that no medicine could cure. Vathon watched his friends die. He watched his family die. He watched his entire species disappear until he was the last one left. The loneliness hit Jake like a physical blow. It was not just sadness. It was the complete emptiness of being the only one of your kind in an endless universe. Jake felt Vathon's mind breaking under the weight of that isolation. Then came the madness. Driven by grief and loneliness, Vathon began to destroy the things that reminded him of what he had lost. He ate planets where life was growing, trying to stop the pain of seeing others have what he could never have again. Jake experienced the moment when the alien fleets surrounded Vathon. He felt the dragon's confusion as they attacked him instead of trying to understand his pain. He felt the betrayal when they wrapped him in chains and condemned him to eternal suffering. And then came 1,000 years of torture. The chains did not just hold him. They fed him an endless stream of his worst memories, making him relive the death of his people over and over again. They amplified his pain until it became the only thing he could feel. Jake screamed as the torture hit his mind. The agony was beyond anything he had ever imagined. He understood now why Vathon had gone insane. No mind could endure this kind of suffering and remain whole. But Jake was human, and humans had one gift that no other species possessed in quite the same way. They could find hope in the darkest places. They could hold on to love even in the face of overwhelming hate. Jake began to fight back against the nightmare. Instead of letting Vathon's memories drown him, he started sharing his own. He showed Vathon images of Earth, of blue skies and green forests. He shared memories of his childhood, of learning to fly his first spacecraft, of the day he realized he wanted to explore the stars. The dragon's mind recoiled from these alien memories. For 1,000 years, the only thoughts in his head had been pain and loss. Jake's memories of joy and wonder were like light being shined into eyes that had been kept in darkness too long. Who are you? Vathon's mental voice was like thunder mixed with anguish. My name is Jake, Jake replied, trying to project calm and friendship. I am a human. I came here because I heard you crying. Crying? The dragon's confusion was massive and terrible. I do not cry. I only rage. I only hunger for destruction. No, Jake said gently. You cry because you miss your family. You cry because you are alone. You cry because you hurt. Jake shared more memories. He showed Vathon the crew of the Starfall, how they worked together and cared for each other. He shared his memory of Lisa's scientific curiosity, of Carlos's loyalty, of Sam's steady courage. These are your pack? Vathon asked. The concept of friendship was almost foreign to him after so long alone. Yes, Jake said. They are my friends, my family. Not by blood, but by choice. They will die, Vathon said, and Jake felt the dragon's deep certainty. All things die. All things leave you alone. Yes, they will die someday, Jake admitted. But that does not make the time we have together meaningless. Love does not become worthless just because it ends. Jake shared his memory of his grandfather's death, the sadness but also the gratitude for all the years they had spent together. He showed Vathon that humans mourn their dead, but they did not let grief destroy their ability to love the living. I do not understand. Vathon said. How do you bear the pain of loss? By remembering that the love was real, Jake said. By honoring those who are gone, by caring for those who remain. By choosing to create new bonds instead of destroying everything that reminds us of what we lost. For the first time in 1,000 years, Vathon considered the possibility that there might be another way to deal with grief. The chains fought against this new thought, sending waves of agony through both minds. But Jake held on, sharing his strength with the tortured dragon. You could have chosen differently, Jake said. When your people died, you could have chosen to protect the young races instead of destroying them. You could have chosen to become a guardian of life instead of an enemy of it. It is too late, Vathon said. I have done terrible things. I have killed countless innocents. It is never too late to choose differently, Jake said. Humans believe in second chances. We believe that anyone can change no matter what they have done before. Jake shared stories of human redemption, of people who had made terrible mistakes but found ways to make amends. He showed Vathon that guilt could be transformed into purpose, that the desire to atone could become a powerful force for good. The dragon's mind began to change. Slowly, carefully, parts of his original personality began to emerge from under the layers of pain and madness. Jake felt Vathon remembering what it had been like to create instead of destroy, to protect instead of threaten. If I were free, Vathon said slowly. What would you have me do? Whatever you choose, Jake said. But maybe you could start by helping others avoid the loneliness that destroyed you. Maybe you could make sure that no one else has to suffer the way you have suffered. Outside on the surface, Lisa was watching Jake's vital signs with growing alarm. His brain activity is off the charts. I have never seen patterns like this. Should we pull him out? Sam asked. Not yet, Carlos said. Look at the chains. They are starting to glow differently. The blue light of the chains was beginning to change, becoming warmer, less harsh. The symbols carved into their surface were rearranging themselves. What is happening? Sam asked. I think, Lisa said with wonder in her voice, I think it is working. The connection between Jake and Vathon grew stronger over the following days. Jake did not leave the crater. He sat beside the massive chain, his hand pressed against its surface, sharing his mind with the ancient dragon. His crew took turns bringing him food and water. They monitored his health constantly, but Jake refused to break the connection. He knew that Vathon needed time to remember who he had been before the pain changed him. How is he doing? Lisa asked Carlos on the third day. His vital signs are stable but strange, Carlos replied. His brain activity shows patterns I have never seen in humans. It is like his mind is expanding. Sam was listening to the sounds coming from the sleeping dragon. The crying has stopped. Now he makes different sounds, softer sounds. Jake could hear their voices, but they seemed to come from very far away. Most of his awareness was inside Vathon's mind, helping the dragon sort through 1,000 years of twisted memories. Together, they began to separate the real memories from the false ones that the chains had created. Jake showed Vathon how to recognize the difference between genuine grief and artificial despair. He taught the dragon techniques that humans use to deal with trauma and loss. Your people would be proud of what you could become, Jake said during one of their mental conversations. They would want you to find peace, not to destroy yourself with endless anger. How can you be certain? Vathon asked. Because that is what love is, Jake said. Love wants the beloved to be happy even after death. Your people loved you. They would want you to live, not just exist in pain. As the days passed, Vathon began to remember more of his original nature. He recalled the joy of flying through nebulae, the satisfaction of helping young worlds develop life, the deep contentment of being part of something larger than himself. I want to try, Vathon said finally. I want to try to be what I was before. Then we need to break the chains, Jake said. That is impossible. They are powered by quantum energy. They cannot be destroyed. Maybe they cannot be destroyed, Jake said, but they could be changed. You understand their technology better than we do. Working together, maybe we can turn them from instruments of torture into tools of healing. Jake called to his crew through their mental link. Lisa, I need you to come down here. Bring Carlos too. We are going to need their help. Lisa and Carlos climbed down into the crater carefully. When they approached the chain where Jake sat, they could feel the energy in the air around them. Jake, Lisa said, are you all right? You have been connected for almost a week. I am fine, Jake said without opening his eyes. Better than fine. Lisa, I need you to study the quantum matrix in these chains. Phaethon is going to help you understand how they work. For the next several hours, Lisa worked with both Jake and Phaethon to understand the complex technology that powered the prison. The dragon's ancient knowledge combined with human engineering techniques began to reveal new possibilities. I think I see what we can do, Lisa said finally. Instead of using the quantum field to cause pain, we can reverse the polarity. We can make it heal instead of hurt. But that will require precise timing, Carlos said. All the chains have to be modified at exactly the same time, or the whole system will collapse and kill him. Phaethon can help us with that, Jake said. He can coordinate the changes from the inside while we work on the outside. They spent 2 more days preparing. Sam joined them, using her communication skills to help coordinate the complex process. Each team member had to modify specific parts of the chain network at exactly the right moment. Everyone ready? Jake asked. Ready, his crew replied. Phaethon, are you prepared? I am ready, my friend. The dragon's mental voice was calm and strong. Thank you for giving me this chance. Begin the sequence, Jake said. Working together, the human team and the ancient dragon began to systematically alter the quantum matrix that had trapped Phaethon for 1,000 years. Where once the chains had fed him nightmares, now they began to repair the damage to his mind. Where once they had amplified his pain, now they soothed his anguish. The process took hours. At several points, Jake thought they might fail. The technology was incredibly complex, and one mistake could have killed them all. But Phaethon guided them through each step, his ancient wisdom combined with human determination proving stronger than the prison that had held him. Finally, as the sun rose on their 10th day on the planet, the last chain modification was complete. It is done, Jake said. The chains around Phaethon began to glow with warm golden light instead of cold blue. The symbols on their surface rearranged themselves into patterns of healing instead of binding. And slowly, very slowly, the enormous dragon began to wake up. Phaethon's eyes opened for the first time in 1,000 years. They were deep gold, like captured starlight. When he saw Jake sitting beside his chain, the dragon's expression was filled with gratitude and wonder. Hello, my friend, Phaethon said, his voice now audible instead of just mental. It was deep and resonant like distant thunder, but gentle. Hello, Phaethon, Jake said. How do you feel? The dragon considered this question carefully. I feel free, not just from the chains, but from the anger, from the madness. For the first time in 1,000 years, I feel like myself again. Phaethon began to stand up. The chains, now transformed into tools of healing, fell away from his body and dissolved into sparkles of light. He stretched his massive wings, and Jake could see that they were beautiful beyond description, covered in scales that shimmered with every color imaginable. What will you do now? Lisa asked. Phaethon looked at each of the humans who had saved him. I will do what I should have done long ago. I will protect instead of destroy. I will help instead of harm. I will make sure that no one else has to suffer the way I suffered. The dragon spread his wings and took to the air for the first time in a millennium. He flew in great circles around the crater, his joy so pure and powerful that Jake could feel it in his heart. But Phaethon did not fly away. Instead, he landed near the ruined city and began to work. Using powers that Jake did not understand, the dragon began to repair the damage that had been done to the planet. Dead soil became fertile again. Broken buildings reconstructed themselves. The scars of ancient battles were healed. This will be a place of learning, Phaethon said when he returned to the crater. A place where young races can come to understand that there is always another choice besides violence. A place where the lonely can find friendship and the lost can find hope. Jake and his crew stayed on the planet for another week, helping Phaethon establish his new home. The dragon used his ancient knowledge to create technologies that could help other species solve their problems peacefully. What about Earth? Sam asked Jake one evening. What do we tell them about what happened here? We tell them the truth, Jake said. We tell them that humans succeeded where other races failed. Not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we were willing to care about someone who seemed beyond help. When it was time for the Starfall to leave, Phaethon thanked each crew member personally. To Jake, he said, You gave me back my life. You gave me back my purpose. I will never forget what humans are capable of. What we are capable of, Jake corrected. You did the hard part. You chose to trust even after everything you had been through. As the Starfall lifted off from the planet's surface, Jake looked back at Phaethon one last time. The dragon was standing in his restored city, ready to welcome any travelers who might need help or guidance. The forbidden system was forbidden no longer. Word spread quickly through the galaxy that the sleeping terror had awakened, not as a destroyer, but as a protector. Ships began to arrive from dozens of worlds, their crews eager to meet the ancient guardian and learn from his wisdom. And at the center of it all was a simple truth that humans had always known, but that the galaxy was just beginning to understand. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from conquering your enemies, but from choosing to save them, even when everyone else has given up hope.